Welcome to Movies in the Making, everyone! If you would like to hear about how films were done behind the scenes, please like down below and subscribe to this channel for more videos, including what films you think should be talked about. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the 1985 science fiction film Back to the Future, released by Universal Pictures and directed by Robert Zemeckis. Here, we will dive deep in the story of the production of this film. This first meant to be so much different from what we all know and love today, but changes made it what it is today, as the film itself implies. To celebrate its 40th anniversary, we shall go back in time ourselves to discover how this film was made. Now, sit back and enjoy the show. You are all in for a past ride. The idea for Back to the Future was sparked when co-writer Bob Gale came across his father's high school yearbook and wondered if they would have been friends had they gone to school together, leading to the film's central themes, discovering that parents were once young and exploring the idea that individuals can shape their own destinies. Gale and his collaborator Zemeckis had long wanted to make a time travel film, but it took time to develop the right concept. Initially, the time machine was not a DeLorean, but a time chamber powered by a nuclear explosion, and early drafts included a more futuristic 1985 and a version of George McFly who became a boxer, elements that were ultimately dropped. Although Steven Spielberg loved the script, the duo hesitated to work with him again until Zemeckis proved himself with Romancing the Stone, 20th Century Studios, 1984. During production, a major change occurred when Michael J. Fox replaced Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, due to the film's comedic tone not coming through with Stoltz. Fox's tight schedule meant filming his scenes at night while he worked on NBC's show Family Ties during the day. Other challenges included managing the eccentric performance of Crispin Glover as George McFly and fine-tuning the film's emotional balance. The first preview was a success, despite brief panic over a dog's fate in a time travel scene, and studio enthusiasm led to an accelerated post-production schedule, setting a new standard for Hollywood turnarounds. Robert Zemeckis became the director after years of the project being rejected by nearly every major studio, with some deeming it too light and others too edgy. Walt Disney Pictures, in particular, objected to the film's central plot involving a mother unknowingly falling for her son. Despite their passion, the screenplay was passed over more than 40 times, and it was not until Zemeckis directed Romancing the Stone that studios began to reconsider him as a viable director. With that success behind him, Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment agreed to produce Back to the Future, and Universal Pictures came on board. Even then, challenges remained. Most famously, Universal Pictures' then president Sidney Sheinberg pushed to change the title to Spaceman from Pluto, believing that the word future would limit the film's appeal. Spielberg tactfully dismissed this suggestion by pretending it was a joke, effectively preserving the now iconic title. Dean Cundey became the director of photography for Back to the Future after working on the challenging shoot for Romancing the Stone, making the mostly studio-based and neighborhood set Back to the Future feel relatively easy in comparison. One of the biggest production hurdles was the mid-shoot replacement of the lead actor. About 5 weeks in, Cundey sensed discontent on set, which was confirmed when Zemeckis announced the cast change and a need to reshoot everything, news the crew surprisingly welcomed. Despite the fatigue from frequent night shoots, especially tough towards the end of the week, the atmosphere remained enjoyable, in part due to Fox's energizing presence, even as he pushed through exhaustion from balancing his TV work. Cundey was initially uncertain about Crispin Glover's unconventional style, but it ultimately made the character of George McFly more distinctive. Michael J. Fox became Marty McFly only after a complicated casting journey that nearly saw another actor in the role permanently. Zemeckis and Gale had always wanted Fox, but his commitment to the show initially made him unavailable, especially with co-star Meredith Baxter on maternity leave, increasing Fox's workload. While Fox was kept from seeing the script, the filmmakers cast Eric Stoltz, a talented method actor who brought intensity but lacked the comedic timing and lightness the role required. After several weeks of filming and unsatisfying results, Zemeckis and Gale approached Spielberg, who advised them not to fire Stoltz until they secured a replacement. With Family Ties nearing its season end and Baxter back, the show's creator finally agreed to let Fox take the role, provided filming worked around his TV schedule. Fox enthusiastically joined the project, filming at night and on weekends, and immediately brought the energy, charm, and comic flair the filmmakers had envisioned. Although most of Eric Stoltz's footage as Marty McFly was believed to have been discarded after his replacement by Michael J. Fox, a brief moment of Stoltz appears to have made it into the final cut of Back to the Future. In a 2015 YouTube video, a blurry glimpse of Stoltz's face can be seen during the scene where Marty punches Biff in the 1950s diner. Supporting this, actor Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff, stated in an interview that he believes the punch was Stoltz's, as the close-up of his reaction was likely not reshot. Behind the scenes, tensions were high between the two actors. Wilson grew frustrated with Stoltz's method acting, particularly during a school cafeteria scene where Stoltz repeatedly shoved him hard in the collarbone, ignoring requests to ease up. Wilson admitted he intended to retaliate later in filming, but Stoltz was dismissed from the role before he could follow through. Christopher Llyod nearly passed on the role of Doc Brown, initially tossing the script into the rubbish because he was not drawn to the character. Despite a successful career in theater, television, and film, including an Emmy-winning run on ABC's show Taxi and a notable role in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, United Artists, 1975, Llyod was not convinced Doc was right for him. However, after seeing the script a second look and meeting with Zemeckis, he changed his mind and agreed to take the part. That decision would define his career, as the eccentric, time-traveling scientist became one of the most iconic characters in film history. Crispin Glover, known for his eccentric personality, once became so nervous while filming that he temporarily lost his voice on set. In a 1987 interview on its night show starring Johnny Carson, Glover explained that his anxiety actually rendered him unable to speak during filming, forcing him to mime his lines silently. Later, he had to dub his dialogue in post-production. Reflecting on the experience, Glover described it as a unique and oddly introspective process, knowing that performing without speaking shifted his focus entirely to his voice during later recording sessions. Back to the Future, though set in the fictional town of Hill Valley, California, was filmed entirely across various real-life locations in Los Angeles County. Key sites include the Universal Studios backlot, where Courthouse Square was used for the town's center, and Whittier High School, which stood in for High Valley High. Marty McFly's home was filmed on Roslindale Avenue in Arleta, while the iconic Twin Pines Mall scene was shot at Puente Hills Mall in Rowland Heights. Other notable locations include the Golden Oak Ranch for Mr. Peabody's property, the McCambridge Recreation Center for Marty's band audition, and Lorraine and George's childhood homes, located side by side on Bushnell Avenue in South Pasadena. Several Pasadena landmarks served as Doc Brown's residences. The exterior was filmed at the historic Gamble House, while interior shots took place at a nearby Blacker House. Both are known examples of arts and crafts architecture. The climactic enchantment under the sea dance was filmed in the basement of Hollywood United Methodist Church. Griffith Park, especially near the Greek Theater parking lot, served as a spot where Marty revs the DeLorean to 88 miles per hour in a race against time. Even the seemingly simple moments, like Marty's skateboarding scene, were filmed in recognizable spots such as a Burger King in Burbank. Decades later, many of these locations remain intact and continue to attract fans from around the world. Back to the Future began as a very different concept, initially titled Spaceman from Pluto, featuring a time machine built from a refrigerator and powered by an atomic bomb. The turning point came when Zemeckis had a hit with Romancing the Stone, reigniting studio interest. Universal Pictures came on board, but only after executive Sid Sheinberg demanded changes, including renaming Professor Brown to Doc, replacing a chimpanzee with a dog. The impractical fridge was swapped for the now iconic DeLorean, chosen for its UFO-like design. The atomic bomb climax was scrapped for budget reasons, replaced by a lightning strike, which also gave the film a more thematically resonant ending. The production itself was ambitious and technically demanding. Special effects supervisor Kevin Pike and his team modified 3 DeLoreans using aircraft parts and scraps to create the film's now iconic time machine, complete with practical lightning effects and pyrotechnics for dramatic time travel sequences. For the climactic moment where the DeLorean breaks the time barrier, Zemeckis wanted something intense and visceral, resulting in a combination of hand-drawn animation, on-set lighting, and even the fire trails captured in camera, enhanced with post-production effects. Meanwhile, Huey Lewis and News were brought in to write a tie-in song. After an initial, ill-fitting submission, they were shown footage of Marty skateboarding and came back with the energetic The Power of Love, which became a chart-topping hit. Alan Silvestri became the composer for the film after previously working with Zemeckis on Romancing the Stone, which impressed the director enough to offer him the new project. Although Silvestri was more experienced with rhythm-driven scores, he embraced the challenge of creating a full orchestral soundtrack, teaching himself orchestration while simultaneously scoring Back to the Future in another film, Fandango, Warner Bros. 1985. Their first conversation about the project happened on the set during the Enchantment Under the Sea dance scene, where Zemeckis simply told him it's going to be big, a directive that left a lasting impression. The score became a turning point in Silvestri's career, helping transform him from a jazz percussionist into a celebrated orchestral composer. Years later, for the film's 30th anniversary, Silvestri returned to the franchise to write new music for a live concert tour, blending familiar themes from the trilogy into the original film score with Zemeckis and Gale's enthusiastic support. As of the 22nd of June 2025, Back to the Future has a 93% critic scoring on Rotten Tomatoes, an 87 out of 100 critic score on Metacritic, an 8.5 rating on IMDb, and a 4.2 rating on Letterboxd. The film's budget was $19 million and it grossed almost $224 million following its initial release date for July 1985. And that wraps up our deep dive into the making of Back to the Future. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to stay up to date on all things movies in the making. Let us know in the comments what you think of Back to the Future, or if you have any favorite moments from that film we've not touched upon, or films you would like to hear covered on this channel. Also be sure to check out our community page, where we announce what films will be talked about by this channel each week. New posts arrive every Friday. Thanks for watching, we'll see you all next time on Movies in the Making. We'll be talking about Jurassic Park, Universal Pictures 1993, and more films to follow along the way. Tune in for more Movies in the Making lists and cover stories by cinema's most unforgettable films. This has been Jason Scotchmer, film enthusiast and passionate about the arts.